What's up, guys? Wes Pyatt here from the Coast Range Podcast. On this episode, we sat down with member and San Jose State lecturer Cristina Carrillo. Cristina Carrillo specializes at San Jose State in lectures on stress and how it affects the body both physiologically and then the actionable steps that we could be using to help curb stress. Great conversation with a very, very, very smart lady that knows a lot about how the body reacts to stress, both mental stress and physical stress. So if you're a CrossFitter or any normal human being in the world that is inundated with stress all day long, this podcast is for you. And we got a special offer for you guys. During the podcast, we were talking about some supplements that people could take to kind of help bring them into more of a parasympathetic state. So just kind of helping like calm the body down, getting rid of inflammation. And we happened to mention taking fish oil. I work with a company, Puori, who has been one of my sponsors for forever. So after the podcast was over, I reached out to them and said, hey, mentioned you in the podcast. Are you guys up for giving a discount code to people who listen? And they said, yeah, absolutely. Of course. So if you guys go to Puori.com and use the code CoastRange20, you'll get 20% off anything at Puori. And if you're a Coast Range CrossFit member, come on in and let the front desk associate know that you heard the podcast and that you would like the 20% discount using the name Coast Range 20, and we'll hook you up at the gym too with 20%. So if we don't have it here, go to Puori.com. Type in the code CoastRange20 and get 20% off, or come on into the gym. Let us know that you listened to the podcast, and we'll give you 20% off on anything Puori here at the gym. We had a great time sitting down and talking with Cristina, and we really hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Coast Range Podcast.
RUCCA, right?
RUCA.
What? I always thought it was two C's.
No,
Ruka. I thought it was one here.
It's like, the Sublime song, My Ruka.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know the Sublime song, My Ruka? Okay. Never mind.
Is that where her name came from?
Well, kind of. Yes and no. And the clothing brand is why we spelled it that way. RUCA. Ruka, the clothing brand Ruka.
Nope.
Mm-hmm. I never heard of a clothing brand Ruka.
Pull that down. Pull it. Yeah. Okay, you've never heard of Ruka, the clothing brand?
No.
Really?
Is it really? Wait.
Yeah, it's Ruka. RUCA.
Wasn't it? Oh, wait. I think I've seen you wear that. I always thought it was RVCA, or is that something different? You're dumb. It's RVCA.
I was going to say, I've seen... Okay,
yeah,
that makes
RVCA,
sense.
right?
RVCA.
Yeah, but isn't it...
Yeah, because they make fun of it and say Ruvka.
But isn't it pronounced Ruka? Like that's the name of the company is Ruka?
No. It's Ruka Clothing Line.
RVCA. Okay, but look... Yeah, but you just said
I just spelled it wrong.
You said Ruka.
I typed in Ruka and it showed me RVCA.
Okay, look up the reasoning why it's RVCA.
Why is it RVCA clothing? Yes. Is it going to answer this question? Coastmates is a company owned by... No, that's not it.
Well, for about a decade, I've been saying
what does it say?
Ruka.
The name resembles something uppercase. Okay, pronounce Ruxa. The RVCA logo is based on the two chevrons, the V and the A, representing the brand's ethos.
The balance of opposites. Interesting.
Ruxa.
Well, you're wrong, but that's okay. I like Ruka's name.
Then how do you say it?
Ruvka.
Or is it just RVCA?
RVCA.
Yeah, but it's pronounced RUXA.
Well, this is stressing me out.
I think this is awesome that we're talking about this.
I'm stressed right now.
Deep breaths, Wes. It's really cool.
For literally a decade, I thought it was Ruka. And I was like, oh, cool Ruka brand. Like,
I feel like you have a lot of instances like that.
Oh, so many.
Like Faith as RX. It's just Faith RX. Faith as RX.
I put an as in there. It flows.
I'm sure
better.
if you give me a second, I can think of a few other ones.
It was literally so hard at the event we did. It was so hard to say Faith RX.
I mentally clapped for you.
I did, and then I said the next time I said Faith as RX, and I was like, no,
dang it!
God. It's hard. I think it's because Life as RX.
Right.
The clothing brand.
Sure.
That's the name of that clothing brand, so boom. And then they changed it to as RX.
Right, which I like. As RX.
No, I like Life as RX.
I like as RX.
Even more.
Good job.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
We're back after a very long hiatus. We're talking with Cristina today about stress. Hi, Cristina.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great.
We're stressing her out.
She's expressing a little high-end stress right now.
A little bit.
Sorry, Ruka.
It's normal.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we brought you on. Number one, you're a member here at Coast Range CrossFit.
I am.
You've been here for a couple of years now.
Yep.
Met your husband here.
I did.
Which is awesome. Getting married.
Fiancé.
Future husband.
It's fiancé.
I'm stressed here,
we're,
guys.
we're almost there.
This is stressing me out.
Fiancé.
Like he's like she's not going to become husband and wife. Like he was like, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa,
but
whoa.
like, have you picked a date? They've picked a date. But like, let them get married, okay?
When it
It's exciting. Wait, when is it? June 25th.
27th.
Oh,
We'll see Brett.
dang it.
Nice one,
7th.
Brett.
I had no idea. Wasn't even in the ballpark. And you do what?
Oh, I am a lecturer at San Jose State University. I'm going on my 3rd year of teaching there now. I teach stress management. I teach physical fitness and nutrition. I teach a few activity classes. A few different things.
Cool.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Do you ever get confused as a student?
Like, do people think you're a student,
Oh, all
not
the
a
time.
teacher?
Yes.
All the time. I walk in on the first day of class and people are like, "Who are you? What are you doing at the front of the class?"
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you get confused by other students or faculty as well?
Oh, faculty as well.
Really?
You told me a story one time where you walked into like the back room to do some work and somebody was like, "I'm sorry, students aren't allowed in here,"
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Had to flash my badge.
I am a teacher.
What do you call this? Mm-hmm. Like, who'd you steal that from? Give that to me. And specifically, what got you into lecturing specifically on stress and nutrition and that kind of stuff?
Well, stress management, there was actually an opening, and my boss had asked me, we have this space available. Would you be interested in teaching this course? And I'm like, absolutely. Am I the person to teach this course? I don't know, because, I've always been a kind of, type A personality, a little high strung. But at the end of the day, I think, it actually helped me in more ways than one, because now I can better manage my stress. And now I'm helping a lot of other people and students manage theirs. So it was a very win-win situation there.
Very cool. Did you find that was kind of like hard to actually go through, though, in a way?
Oh, definitely. Because there was a lot of times where I was questioning myself, should I even be here? Am I the right person to be doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, I can imagine that, especially being such a type A personality and going through the levels of stress and how they affect the body, and that might even stress you out.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, this is me. And then the other day we had you come in and actually do a lecture for all the coaches during one of our coaches meetings here, and you went over the whole model of stress, how it affects the body physiologically, some things that we can do to actually not necessarily prevent stress, but deal with it in positive and negative ways and stuff. And I was like, we got to get you on the podcast and have you come in. So thank you for coming by today. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I just want to go over really quick, like the things that I want to discuss with you and make sure that we're leading off on the right path. And like, if you think we should start somewhere else as far as like the physiology of it, the way it works, just let me know. But big things I want to know is, what is stress? So, like, where does stress come from? And then how does our body react to it? And then what are the things, negative and positive, that we can do to fix those things? So let's start there. Just what is stress?
Okay, cool. So stress is the combination of a stressor, stress reactivity, and strain. So a stressor is something that has the potential to stress us out. We actually give that thing the potential to stress us out. For some people, speaking in front of a large group, get very, very stressed out. And other people are like, it's no big deal. This is, I'm totally fine. So in our mind, we give that thing, again, the potential. I sound like a broken record. So that, first and foremost, we're giving that thing the potential to stress us out. And then after that thing stresses us out, that leads to stress reactivity. And stress reactivity is the physiological response, how our body actually responds to whatever that stressor. And that's, things like increased heart rate, not being able to sleep at night, those feelings of anxiety, your breath starts to, you start to breathe a little faster, maybe a little bit harder. You won't be able to think as clearly, things like that. And when it comes to stress reactivity, we look at two things. We look at duration and the degree of that stress reactivity. Because some of us would think that, if we have some big life thing that occurs to us, such as a family member dying, that is something that is very short in duration. So it's an acute stressor with a very large degree. That's something that, it'll hit us pretty hard.
It's trauma.
Exactly. But in the long run, actually, things that have a longer duration, that are of a very little degree, are actually more damaging to our health. So,
wow. Yeah.
So things like, if we, living in Gilroy, if we're driving up to San Jose, San Francisco for work, we're sitting in hours and hours of traffic. And if that thing is giving us stress, that is actually going to be worse for our health, because that traffic is stressing us out. We're having the stress reactivity, those physiological responses, and we're dealing with that with, months or even years and years of, sitting in that traffic and feeling all those physiological responses. And that's going to be much more damaging.
That's a straw on the camel's back thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just you don't feel it until all of a sudden, boom,
yep,
something happens. That would explain a lot the difference between why some people react to some stress and some people the exact same stress would stress them out 10 times as much or 10 times as less as that one person. Is that just from I guess you can call it like a muscle memory type of thing? Like they've been through that stress so many times, their body has just figured out a way to adapt to it, so it's not as stressful to them? Or is it still causing the same physiological response regardless of how well you are at dealing with that stress?
That would be the latter, what you just, yeah.
So it's still stressing them out. It's still causing it. They're just able to handle it more. Yeah, so like one of the things that always comes to my mind is police officers in general. Or firefighters or anybody who's think about the stress they're under 24 hours a day, you know what I mean? And specifically when they're on calls and stuff, and they go, talk to any cop and be like, well, yeah, you have a very stressful life. And they're like, no, I don't really think so. And you're like, no, you do. But they're so used to it that it doesn't bother them as much anymore. Can you touch on that a little bit more about regardless of, if you're used to that stress or not, what is it doing to your body?
So in terms of, that's what we would call strain. So that is the after effects of that stress reactivity. So these are long-term disease consequences, especially if you're a person that's not managing their stress very well. You're going to experience, high blood pressure, silent killer. A lot of people don't, you don't know that you have high blood pressure. You don't usually have any symptoms. You don't feel anything until you've gone to the doctor, and the doctor's like, hey, you have high blood pressure, and it's, due to your stress. So things like high blood pressure, and then high blood pressure can lead to more serious things like stroke and heart attack. Then we also have things like ulcers, stress-induced, and then also psychological things like anxiety and depression. Yeah,
so all of those things, regardless of if that person feels like it's bothering them or not in the moment, they should be doing things to combat those.
Absolutely.
And what are some of those things?
So, can I just talk about the stress model really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Heck yeah.
If you want to use the whiteboard or anything like that to do it, if you guys are listening, we'll have a video version of this. Hopefully the camera stays on. We'll have a video version of this and stuff. So watch the video version in order to see the stuff she's drawn up on the whiteboard here.
So when it comes to the stress model, we have our life situation. Am I going to be able to reach?
Just watch out for Ruka.
You're in a great spot.
Oh, here. Oh. No, throw it away. Burn it, and blow it up. Throw it away. We don't like markers like that here. Okay.
Is it going to be backwards?
I don't think so.
Because the camera's turning around?
Yeah. Oh, all they have to do is just watch it and with a mirror.
We'll take a picture.
If you're dyslexic, you love this one.
Exactly.
We'll find out.
Okay. Let me just move to the side really quickly. Okay, so this is the stress model. So first we have our life situation that occurs. We must perceive that life situation as stressful.
Okay, so before you go any further, say let's use the cop model. They don't perceive it as stressful.
So, okay, in that manner, in that regard, if they do not perceive it as stressful, then this will not occur.
But okay, you may not perceive it as stressful that there's somebody laying in front of you that just got shot, for example. But come on.
Well, are you asking or deducing that there can be physical stress responses without an emotional reaction?
Usually emotional response always comes before the physiological. And in some cases, you might not feel the emotional response just because things are moving so quickly. But if this is, a day-to-day regular stressor, you're going to definitely feel that emotional response.
A tolerance. Like maybe they felt that emotional response in the first year of them working on the field, and then 10, 15 years down the line, this is being pushed to the side view, and they're now experiencing these things.
Cool. Keep going. Yeah. Awesome.
So we perceive this situation as stressful. After that, we're going to have an emotional response. An emotional response, it can vary for anybody. It could be sadness, it can be anger, it can be anxiety. It could turn into, a full-blown depressive type of episode. So this is going to vary for everybody. But regardless, you're going to have some type of emotional response. After the emotional response, it's going to move on to the physiological. So that's when we're going to start to feel our heart rate increase. Our breathing rate is going to increase. We're not going to be able to sleep. We're just not going to feel good. We might have some tummy troubles depending on the type of individual you are, because it's going to increase gastrointestinal motility. So some people might be going to the restroom a little bit more frequently compared to others. Again, so there is some variability between individuals here as well.
So the physiological is what happens right before we say 3, 2, 1, go, and everybody's like, wait, hold on, I got to go to the bathroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
And if the physiological responses go on for long enough, that's going to turn into those long-term consequences. So things like high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, ulcers, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for somebody that has a life situation that happens or whatever, they may not perceive it as extremely stressful, but it is definitely a stress that's happening in some way, whether it just be from the paperwork they have to do for it, or whether it be that they have, there's going to be consequences of this thing that's happening in front of them. Where do we go from here then?
Okay, so from there, let's say, with the situation that you just described, so whatever they're doing, they perceived it as stressful. So right when they start to feel those emotional responses, that's when we need to start to do some of those traditional relaxation exercises. So things like diaphragmatic breathing, doing a little bit of meditation, or trying to be mindful in that moment. And hopefully by doing that will decrease that emotional arousal, that emotional response, so we can stop it from going down any further. However, just because I mentioned, doing some diaphragmatic breathing or meditation, just doing it that once isn't going to completely stop it, because just like anything in life, you need to practice these things. So those relaxation techniques you have to practice. So you can get really good at it, and you could technically get to a point where if you perform enough diaphragmatic breathing or meditation, you can stop it at that point. And that's kind of what we want to do. But, like all things in life, that's, it's
might not.
it's not how that works all the time. So usually it's going to end up getting to the physiological arousal stage. And at that point, once we start feeling that, we can start doing things with our body to help decrease some of those physiological things that will happen, all those hormone responses. So performing exercise, or even doing a body scanning exercise where you look, not necessarily look, but you kind of feel
tension in certain places and try to release it.
Exactly. Or doing something like progressive muscle relaxation, where you start at the top of your head and you contract and relax all the muscle groups going from your head, your face, all the way down to your toes. And doing something like that here. And if you do that, and again, on a consistent basis, you get a lot of practice, hopefully we can avoid getting to those big consequences.
Awesome.
Hey, do you ever have a situation where, let's say a person's stressed, so they say, I need to work out just to try and get or release some of the stress, and they work out, but then they cause a physical stress on their body because of the workout. Is there anything with regards to that? I don't know if it's a question or if it's just like a statement. It's like, okay, if there was one stressor, relieve one, but cause another. Have you had any situations like that?
The only situation that I've encountered is that same situation, but that individual ends up getting injured from that activity.
Oh, wow.
And then now it's turned into that loop. So now, they were stressed out, they exercised to relieve that stress, but now they've caused themselves a different type of stress by becoming injured during this workout session. And so now they're stressing out about being injured and then not being able to exercise. And while that used to be their relief, and they can't do that anymore. And that kind of leads in, in a vicious cycle.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that really answers your question.
Yeah,
a little bit,
that's
yeah.
great. So what are some things people can do, like to recognize that that's starting to happen and back off a little bit in the workouts, or use certain things to be like, okay, I should not be trying to PR right now because of these other stressors I have going on, and it could lead to a physical.
So I think taking the time just to, even before you get to that workout, just, even if you need to write it down, just realizing, how you go through your stress model, because we're going to all experience different things. I might experience some anxiety while, you might experience a totally different, emotion. But just kind of looking at your life and looking at how you respond to stress and just becoming aware of that. So if you get to that workout and okay, I'm feeling a little stressed out, or, I'm feeling a little tired because I haven't been sleeping due to this stressful thing, becoming aware and knowing that, okay, this is where this is heading. I think I need to kind of
reel it in.
Exactly.
So you probably experienced that a little bit too, because I know, like for you, like your wrists are an issue. So anything with handstand walks or anything overhead, that stresses you out, I'm sure.
Definitely.
So how do you so what process do you personally go through then? What do you do for that?
Well, at that point, I kind of tell myself, of course I always want to push and always do a little bit more than I did the last time, but I know, got to say, Cristina, got to relax. It's okay. Kind of take a moment to see where I am at mentally, make a note, see where I'm at physically, and kind of test a couple of things out. And then after that, from there, that's when I decide, okay, this is what my plan is going to be for today's workout, or, or for the week, or, what have you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. As far as looking at like lifestyle things that people can do to keep stress at the minimum, if you were to put it in like, a hierarchy, what would you say are like the most important things people should be doing daily towards like the snake oil type of stuff?
Ooh, the first thing, time management. So planning your day, planning your routine, so that stress doesn't even occur in the first place.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals have stress from, like, for example, healthy eating, drinking enough water, that can be very stressful for some people. But if you take enough time, if you plan out your day, if you plan out your week with meal prepping, maybe on a Sunday, you're going to get rid of all that stress right then and there. And then throughout the week, you're not going to have any stress. So this is, kind of like that source management. If you can kind of plan ahead and, plan not to have that stress in your life, you're going to do much better.
Yeah. Then that leads down another stressor is I don't have time to plan, and now I don't have the time to plan, and it all comes down to time, right? Like I saw something really cool the other day that somebody said, don't say that eating healthy and working out, put healthy thing here, that you don't have enough time to do it. Say that it's not a priority of yours. Because if it was a high priority of yours, you would make time for it to happen. So like sitting down and just really figuring out what are your priorities right now with where your life is may help with the time management part of it, right?
Oh,
because
definitely.
the most time to the things that are more important to you in that moment, and then down the list you just have less time. And if being around an extra 10 years is really important to you, then I think meal prepping on Sundays or doing whatever, like I'm biased obviously, and I'm a broken record. I've talked about it a million times, but I think that's like an important place to start too. Would you believe, or would you say that's true?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
So like time management, figuring out what your priorities are, and then
after that, definitely exercising on a regular basis, because, everybody's going to have some sort of stress in their life. Exercise is just going to keep you healthy. It's going to keep your blood vessels healthy. It's going to keep your, depending on what type of exercise you're doing, muscle mass is going to be up, body fat percentage is going to be down, which is optimal, for optimal health. After that, after we've, done time management, we've done source management, we've made time for exercise.
Sorry, you said source management.
kind of the same thing with time management, just finding the source of
Resources.
our stress.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yep.
finding the source of our stress, or even finding a better way of doing something, like a more efficient way. You know, if we have, you know, this task that has that requires, you know, 10, 11 steps, but we figured out how to do it in like 6, you know, that can be another way of reducing our stress.
Yeah, I think that's like when it comes to meal prepping and stuff like that. Like, but one of the big things that keeps people from meal prepping is how long it takes. It just takes up your entire Sunday, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
And then obviously the more you do it, the more efficient you become at it. You figure out little tips and tricks and stuff like that. But you got to go through a little bit of that kind of like, man, I just spent my whole Sunday like literally prepping and stuff. You know, but
I've died to Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. I prioritize Sunday as my get my life together day.
But like I was thinking about it the last like, you know, couple months really, like just, you know, thinking about how my life is changing and what I want to put my priorities towards, you know, and for the last decade it's been training. And so now it's got to be a little bit different. And like I've looked at meal prepping for myself as more of like research and development in a way now, where I'm going, where can I cut corners? Where can I cut the fat out? What do I really need and what don't I need? And how can I make things as simple, like the precision nutrition thing? You know, John always says, like, what's the least I can do with the most results? And
Right.
that's where I'm at right now, is like, and so I like when people are, you know, doing the time management thing, like part of that is when you're doing your meal prepping, like being mindful of what you're doing, and are you wasting steps, or could you make up way more
Minimize
time
those.
by doing, you know, maybe buying a cutter, or like a, you know, like one of those big counter, like you put the veggies on it and you just go boom,
Oh, yeah.
like the in and out fry thing. Bam, you know, like imagine if you had one of those in your kitchen, you just threw a bell pepper in there and flap, like it would be like, cool, that saved me 20 minutes, you know, or something like that. So cool. All right. So time management, exercise, what would you say would be like the next step?
After that,
We can reorganize this at the end too if we see something that looks like, oh, that should go there.
okay, perfect. After that, I think I would put, you know, gosh, I feel like these two things are, you know, the
Synonymous?
they're like the biggest things when it comes to stress management. Because if we manage our time, if we manage that source of stress, you know, whether it's, you know, leaving 10 to 15 minutes early so we avoid that traffic, you know, that's going to, you know, that's going to take away that stressor right then and there. Or, gosh, I think time management is probably going to be, it's definitely going to be at the bottom of this pyramid here.
Yeah.
Exercise. And I think after that, we can add in all of our traditional relaxation techniques. So things like doing things like journaling, or even things like cognitive restructuring or cognitive reframing.
Can
That's
you
actually a really big one.
Expand on that more.
So cognitive restructuring / reframing. So that's looking at, you know, that life situation and kind of looking at it in a different light. So instead of looking at that life situation as, that thing is going to stress me out, we're looking at it like a challenge.
Keep going, sorry.
No, it's fine. So looking at that thing like a challenge instead of a stressor, because that's going to rewire the whole way that we look at, you know, whatever that life situation is.
Totally.
So instead of going down this model, instead of, you know, raising our blood pressure, increasing our heart rate, we're actually going to look at it like, okay, this is a challenge. You know, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna conquer this thing.
Yeah.
And there's actually something called a hardy personality. So individuals that have a hardy personality, they look at a stressor as a challenge, and they have, individuals with a hardy personality have the 3 C's. So they look at their stressor as a challenge. They are committed to overcoming it.
You know the third. You know it.
A challenge, committed, and hardy personality. CCC. Challenge, committed.
I can't believe I forgot the 3rd C.
It's okay. We can come back to it. It's fine. We'll figure it out. We got 1 and 2. We'll figure out the 3rd one before we're done. Hardy personality.
Would you say this is also like a type A person as well?
So,
Or does it matter?
so when it comes to, in terms of personality types, yes, we have our type A, our type B, type C, and D.
Okay.
And then we have our hardy personality people, and they're, I wouldn't put them necessarily in a separate category,
Okay.
because I believe, definitely you can be type A and you can also have a hardy personality. But hardy people are almost like in their own little, or in their own circle, just because researchers are still trying to determine whether or not we can become a hardy person or whether individuals are just born with a hardy personality. I remember the third C. It's control.
There we go.
Oh my gosh. So individuals with a hardy personality, they view their stressor as a challenge. They are committed to overcoming it, and they are in control. So they have an internal locus of control. They believe that, they can do all the things in order to overcome this challenge.
Cool.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
Because
that was going to really bother me.
I remember growing up, I used to think of type A as what you wanted to be. And the more type A I became, the more I realized that there's a lot of negative effects of being type A as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you expand on some of those things?
So individuals that have a type A personality are more likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease just because individuals that are type A, they are usually not the most patient. They have a sense of time urgency. They have a sense of time urgency.
Now!
No!
They're more likely to carry more tension compared to their type B counterpart. And their type B is very, go with the flow. It's cool, man. I actually have a really cute little cartoon about type A and type B personality. I'll have to share that with you guys.
What's C and D?
So type C and type D.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't either. I was like, C and D? What's going on here?
So type C and type D, not as common as type A and type B, but type C and D are more associated with depression and more associated with cancer and forming those negative type of illnesses and diseases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Keep going, guys. I like it. So we were talking about being able to take the life situation and actually flip it around.
Growth.
So I put growth versus fixed mindset, you know? So I talk with my athletes all the time about it of I failed this weight I should make all the time. And what is wrong with me and stuff. And it's nothing. Let's take why you failed that and look at how that can actually be used as a positive, right? What didn't we do recovery wise, or what have we been doing in your programming that led to this?
That sounds like this.
What's that?
There's some control involved. Maybe not exactly that, but it kind of makes it so that it's this isn't just happening to me.
Yes.
I have control of this situation. I have control over my recovery. I have control over what I put into my body. And this just didn't happen because maybe this happened, and not feeling I did everything I could have done, because 9 out of 10 times, did we do everything we could have done?
Not even close.
Negative.
Yeah, not even close.
Sorry, keep going.
No, yeah, that was it. And so switching that around. So we go time management, we utilize exercise, and then we're going into a growth versus a fixed mindset. Would you say that that's okay to say? Or
yes.
How did you phrase
How'd you
it
word
exactly?
it?
Yeah.
Oh, cognitive restructuring / reframing.
And then it's from what to what? Something to challenge?
So looking at that, so going from a stressor to looking at it as a challenge.
Stressor to challenge.
Cool.
But I know cognitive restructuring, it can be pretty hard for individuals, especially, it really depends on the stressor as well, because, if you're looking at, if we're cognitively restructuring something like traffic, okay, cool, we're going to be sitting here for an hour and a half trying to get to work in the morning. But, you kind of try to find the positive in something like that. So we're also doing a little bit of selective awareness, trying to look at the positive versus just looking at the negatives. We're not necessarily denying the negative. Yeah, it's not ideal that we're sitting here for an hour and a half, but I'm going to make the most of my time out of this situation. So listening to, something like a podcast, or, maybe putting together a really nice playlist of music that you enjoy on the way there, or even, practicing some imagery when you're sitting there for 20 minutes not moving.
Sounds like Jocko's good.
Good. Yeah.
Everything.
I'm stuck in traffic. Good.
I get to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Versus trying to do cognitive restructuring on, maybe you have a family member that's just been diagnosed with an illness that's going to be very hard on your family. So again, it depends on the situation, depends on the stressor.
Cool. What do you think would be next after cognitive restructuring / reframing?
After that, I think that's when we can start to dabble with our traditional relaxation techniques. So things like mindfulness and meditation, diaphragmatic breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things that I just mentioned are excellent, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to, attacking that stressor head on, those are not the first things that we want to be using. We want to be utilizing all of these first before we get to, doing some of that meditation, mindfulness. Just because when we're experiencing that stressor already, it's harder to kind of meditate that stress away rather than, if we could have prevented this from occurring in the first place kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the big feedback, I guess, loop, I guess you could put it, as that coaches go through with people, is that, I have an hour with you, we work out, afterwards I can recognize your stress. And so I give you a lot of these things to do, knowing that really it comes down to this stuff, but I only have so much time, so I'm hey, just breathe and try meditating, try relaxing, because there are things you can do right now in the moment to try to bring it down a little bit, but it's not, it's taking the water out of the boat. It's not fixing the hole in the boat, because that would take a lot of time for us to sit down and go over and stuff. So that's why we do the nutrition stuff, and we try to get people to come in and hey, sit down with us for an hour and talk, and let's figure this thing out, and let's coach you through this, versus when you come in and do a CrossFit workout, for example, I recognize you're stressed. I don't want you to push too hard today, but I also want to give you the ability to feel like you have control. You know what I mean? And it's so tough as a coach when we only have an hour with people, which is one of the big reasons why we're doing this podcast, right? Is so that people can hear this stuff and know that great, we'll give you mindful techniques, or we'll even one day you come in and we actually do a ROM WOD here. You know what I mean? Because we have the time to do it. But it's I get nervous that people think that that's enough, and it's not even close. No.
Well, it was looking at someone tweak their back in the Sumo I Love today, and she probably will listen to this podcast, and she's going to think I'm calling her out, but
should call her out.
This happens, not even just happen today. It happens all the time.
You're wearing her headband.
It happens. It happens to me too, and it turns into a question asking process for me. How did you sleep last night?
Yeah,
what did you do?
What I'm
what led
about.
to this? Or when we physically work on her body, hey, did you know this is really tight? When do you recover? When do you stretch? Have you rolled this out in a while? What? And it's no, none of that.
None of that. Or wow, I'm stressing you out even more talking about it, because now this is more that you need to do. Right. And so there's that fine line of being a coach of I need to give you just enough right now to kind of calm down and relax and stuff. But if I layer too much onto you, that could stress you out even more, because you recognize you're not doing the things you should be doing.
But I think the awareness part is huge. Just bringing awareness. I do that with some of my clients, and I've done it a lot in the past, where it's they have a problem with stress eating. I hear that probably 70% of the time. And so then my first step is always becoming aware of it. When you want to get that, you're taking 15 breaths before you do that. And whether you decide to take the item or not, at least you're now becoming aware of the process. And oh, this is how I feel right now. And then they can sort of associate, whoa, I'm super stressed out, or whoa, my heart rate's really high, or I feel like this right now. And then at least when we're grabbing for things, we know the state we're usually in when we're grabbing for things, versus if I'm super chilled out and my heart rate's really low and I'm feeling pretty zen, if you will, I'm not finding myself in those situations. But an awareness is
because
huge.
You did the stuff leading up to that to make sure that you're not in those situations. Yeah.
Right. But some people lead stressful jobs, and that's life. And they may have managed their time really well, but they are also the first person who's on scene at a car accident. Or they're also the nurse that's in the ER when someone's wheeled in with Lord knows what happened to them, So, and yes, they have managed their schedule, but they are still going to be strapped with stress. But still being able to find techniques in the midst of those situations, because there will be we will do those things, and there will be people who do those things willingly, who put them, because they're amazing people.
From all of this, something came to me. Another thing that I actually want to add to this list is, which is actually really, really important when it comes to stress management, is social support. Social support, whether it's reaching out to a family member and talking to them, or asking for advice, or even if it's a type of tangible support or financial support, here, family member, let me lend you my car because I know yours broke down, or here's a small loan so you can get it back on your feet. Social support is going to be huge, absolutely huge when it comes to stress management.
That's awesome.
Where would you put it? So we have time management, exercise, cognitive restructuring, reframing, and traditional relaxation techniques.
Oh, it's going to be in here.
Where?
Right here.
At the base.
Yeah, it's going to be at the base.
Rad.
Okay.
Yeah, they say like people who have large families, big, good bonds with people always end up living longer.
So for audio people only, we're putting social support right around time management, before exercise, is what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What would be next on this? Like now we're getting into the snake oil kind of stuff, right? Like the supplements and the...
Yeah, right. So after that, it would be things like, if you want to take a supplement, or, there are some nice teas out there that have like valerian root, and valerian root will help decrease, some of that anxiety and just general feelings of stress, just to help you relax a little bit. Mm-hmm. And valerian, super popular. I know it's in a bunch of like sleepy time teas. It's one of the main ingredients.
Essential oil that I put on my feet at night.
Oh yeah, to help you sleep.
Yes.
Yep. Or things like I'm probably going to butcher the spelling of this. Ashwagandha.
Oh yeah.
That's getting really popular.
Yeah, it is.
Valerian. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. I am horrible at spelling. Horrible.
Ashwagandha, just like it sounds.
Here we go.
Very good.
And even something like melatonin will also help you.
Nighttime.
Yes,
And
a lot of these things are nighttime things too.
E?
No, that's right.
So these would all be taken at night.
Right.
About 30 minutes before bed.
Yep.
Right? Cool. Anything else? What about fish oil?
Fish oil? Actually, yeah, omega fatty acids.
So like some omega-6s?
Definitely.
Or omega-3s?
Yeah, omega-3s.
Add some more stress.
Yeah, add some more information there. Put some 3s in there.
Yeah.
Oh, and even...
and omega-3s just to bring down the overall... inflammation in the body, which helps reduce stress systemically, right? And
Definitely.
So if you can just reduce the physical stress... you can help bring down the mental stress a little bit, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
What some of our listeners just heard was go keto.
No.
I'm just kidding. Keep going.
Make sure, though, too, like when omega-3s are all over, all these supplements, right, are all over the place. So making sure you're making informed, correct decisions on that stuff. Like, I don't know much about valerian root, ashwagandha, or ashwagandha as far as like reputable places to go to get them. I do know melatonin, like studies have been all over the place where they'll pull bottles off the shelves and they could be plus or minus 60 milligrams of what they're saying on the front of the bottle.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
So I know
Thorn.
Is it Thorn or Thorny?
It's for sure just Thorn.
I don't know.
It's Thorn.
Ruca or RVC? No,
It's got to be Thorn.
I think it's Thorny. I don't know. Look it up.
It's for sure Thorn.
But I know that they've had really good results on their like third-party testing they've done on their melatonin supplements.
It's one of my all-time favorite brands.
Yeah,
is Thorn.
they seem to be really doing it the right way. And then for omega-3s, my favorite is Peori, 100%, just because I know the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
I've been behind the scenes. I've watched I've seen the PowerPoint, but like where they get their fish from, how they're investing back into those fishermen and helping them stay alive so that they can continue to do it the right way, not just going with the cheaper brand and stuff. And so, in my opinion, if you're going to get any omega-3s, go through Peori. If you're going to get any melatonin, I would go through Thorny. That's just Thorny. Thorny. Those are the two companies that I would go through. But what about ashwagandha or valerian root? I don't know much about those.
So I know ashwagandha, that's something that's fairly new. There's a lot of research still coming out. So in terms of, where to get it, I'm probably not the best individual to ask.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm not sure if labdoor.com, if they have a little snippet on, valerian root, ashwagandha. I think that's the place where I would go in order to find a company that is, reputable and says that, it has what it actually is supposed to have in it. Another thing that I would add to this list is actually vitamin Bs. So B6, B9, B12. A lot of individuals that suffer from depression or anxiety, or, they're having a hard time getting out of that emotional, stressful response state. They, in most cases, they're low in their vitamin Bs. So if you suspect that is you, I recommend going to get a blood test at your doctor's office. Also, if you're feeling like really tired and you don't know why, it could also be because of your vitamin B levels are low.
And you said B6 and B12 specifically?
And B9.
And B9. I haven't heard much about B9. Okay.
Benign.
If I recall correctly.
Benign?
Benign.
Cool. Awesome. So that would be like the supplementation part of this, and then we're getting the weeds. Is there anything after that that you would even say like people would, because I feel like it usually goes this way.
Oh, definitely.
Like most people, when they try
yeah.
to deal with stress, they start with the supplements. Then they do the, the traditional relaxation techniques. Then they finally maybe think about restoring, but it's definitely not from bottom up. It's always like top down.
Exactly.
Because this doesn't take any effort.
Yeah, but it's like, okay,
I can pop a pill and be done. This takes time.
this is free.
Right?
Word.
All this stuff costs money.
True.
Like even this stuff, like the traditional relaxation techniques, you're probably buying, Calm or the mindful apps or something like that. And it's like people are spending so much money on something that is really free. Like you don't need money to fix this stuff. This podcast is free. To do the stuff. Yeah. Okay, so supplementation, like is there another thing above that?
Or is that it?
Well, the new thing right now, the very popular thing right now is, using CBD and THC.
Yeah, there we go. Cool.
That is very much trending right now. So whether you're using like a CBD tincture, something that you put underneath your tongue, or you're smoking, whether it's pure CBD from a vape pen or some type of mixture with THC.
Ow.
You okay?
Careful.
Yeah, I'm good.
Need some THC?
Yes.
You good?
So using something like that, but I think I would probably also put that in the supplementation
Yeah,
kind of
totally.
category. But
What are your thoughts on marijuana and CBD?
from what I have very little information on the subject. Probably need to do some more research. But from what I've learned so far, I think it's great. If it helps you, use it, especially if you take, a CBD tablet, or if you use that pure CBD vape pen, with that specific dosage. If you just take, a little bit and it helps you feel better, then do it. If it's going to help decrease that emotional or that physiological response, go for it. I know that there are different types of strains of, especially if you're consuming THC, there are different strains that'll help you with sleep or help you with pain, and things like that. But again, I would probably reach out to someone that is reputable in that area.
You're talking about the difference between like sativa and
indica,
and
things like that.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, so I know indica is a downer, will help you
Sleepy.
come down, and then sativa is supposed to be an upper. And so,
Supposed to give you a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
So I'd probably lean towards the indica.
especially if we're talking about stress.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure. Cool. One of the things I want to hit on a little bit is like, what kind of happened recently in Gilroy with the shootings at the Garlic Festival. And we have a ton of people at this gym that were very close to what happened, and, a few cops that were there in the moment, a few firefighters that were there in the moment. And I was talking to one of them yesterday at the grocery store, and one of the things he kept bringing up, and it's something that I've been through some stuff as far as therapy goes with it, like getting out of the military and being a firefighter and learning how to deal with the images in your head that people should not see, and then they do, and it's like just stuck in your head. What are some things that people can do who were a part of the Gilroy Festival, were there, or maybe had a family member that was there, or anything that they obviously have way more stress that's going on, and we can see people spiral into the wrong types of things, drug abuse, alcohol,
Right.
negative things to try to deal with the stress. What are some simple things that they can do to kind of help deal with that stress that they've got going on right now?
Reach out to somebody. That social support. It's going to be huge, whether you reach out to a friend or a family member, or if you reach out to a professional, for some talk therapy, either or, depending on what you feel you need. But if you are someone that is, some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, so things like reliving the event, if you're having consistent or repetitive flashbacks of the event over and over, or if you have an uncomfortable reaction to just hearing, a pop or a car backfiring, Or if you are experiencing avoidance, so if you are trying to specifically avoid people or places, or a place where there are a lot of people, or if you have if you're hyper aroused, or you're hyper vigilant, you can't sleep, you feel like someone's watching you, or you just feel constantly afraid. If that is you or someone that you know and love, I recommend at that point reaching out for some professional for some professional help. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just so we can kind of get you away from, reliving the experience over and over, or, feeling afraid if you're, going out to the store, or, just anywhere.
Yeah, I remember doing some work with a therapist, like after getting out of the military, and like going into it being like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. Like, it stresses me out just to think about even trying to talk about this stuff,
right.
And I'd rather just not even talk about it. And the feeling you have after you talk about it, and to specifically to somebody who's non-biased, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even know, and it's just this person, and it's fine. They can bring stuff out of you that, like, when you leave there, it's like a weight is just lifted off of your shoulders, which is so weird, because you would think talking about it would bring up more feelings and make you feel worse. But I think bringing up those feelings and allowing those feelings to come out is actually what takes the stress away.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's why I was like talking to my friend about just being like, you have to talk about this stuff. Like, any opportunity you have somebody where somebody's there to listen to you and they're willing to take that in, like, talk and let it go, and be okay with crying and be okay with being vulnerable and those types of things, because the more you bottle that up inside, the worse it's going to be for you, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Type A.
I am like A and a half, okay? I got a lot of B in me.
Cool, you guys. So let's wrap this thing up in a little bit of a bow here. Stress is good.
Oh, absolutely.
We need stress.
Yes, we do need stress to survive. Without it, we would not be alive.
Why?
Very, very depressed.
Oh, yeah. Well, stress actually makes us better. Especially if you, like, just giving you an example. If you are an athlete in competition, if you aren't stressed out about it, you're not going to have that drive in order to work for, that first place finish. You're probably, you're not going to be very aroused. You're probably not really going to care. You're not going to be able to focus. But if you just have just enough stress where you're like, okay, I'm amped up. I'm paying attention. I'm, noticing what's going on around me. So we just need just that little bit just to get us where we need to go. In life, students that are taking an exam, if you're not nervous or just a little bit nervous about that exam, I'd worry a little bit, because, you should be a little bit anxious before you take a test, because that's going to be your best when you go and you take that exam. You're, it's actually going to make you better. I know it doesn't feel very good, but the stress is going to make you better. And when we're looking at the big picture, we want to make sure this is, it's like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We don't want too little stress. We don't want too much stress, but we want the optimal amount of stress right in the middle there.
Totally. Awesome. So we recognize that stress is a good thing for us, right?
Yes.
But it can also be a bad thing for us, where we overload too much stress. And when that happens, we see things like what start to show up physically.
So physically, things like high blood pressure, things like anxiety.
Inability to sleep.
Oh, yeah. Inability to sleep.
Lack of hunger.
Oh, yeah. Our appetite will change. Well, depending on, again, this is very just on an individual basis. Some people might
eat more.
Stress eat. And then with stress eating, that could lead to obesity. And then with obesity, that could lead to diabetes. So stress is also kind of linked to diabetes in that way.
Oh, yeah.
Personality changes too.
Personality changes. Oh, yeah. You're going to be irritable. You're not, you're not going to want to talk to people. Yeah.
So then we recognize these physical responses to stress, and now we dive into this model in a way, right? Like, start with time management. So create a priorities list.
Yep.
Like, what would you guys put on that priority list? Like, for me, it'd be like health and wellness, family, job, career, those types of things, friends, whatever else you've got. But creating an actual list of like what is most important versus what can kind of like take the least amount of your time.
Yep.
And then creating time management around those most important things.
Yes.
Cool. Next thing would be exercise.
Yeah, making enough time to exercise. Whatever it is, whatever you enjoy. I think we might be a little biased here and say it's CrossFit.
Yeah.
But, if that's not for you, that's totally fine. As long as you're doing something. Even if it's just brisk walking, it's better than nothing.
So that was what I was going to kind of play devil's advocate here. It's like we talk about that, exercise is so important. But if we do that priorities list and somebody says, well, exercise is the least important thing for me right now because I need to focus most on my career and my whatever, but exercise will always help that stuff. So
Definitely.
Health and wellness always needs to be at the top.
Right.
Exactly. Because, if you're not healthy, if you're not able to perform on a daily basis, and I'm not saying perform in terms of, athleticism, but if you're not healthy enough to go to work and do your job, then, there's no career anymore because you're not even healthy enough to show up and, do the best job that you can do.
Yeah, or even optimize your brain function, right?
Yeah.
The ability to solve problems and make things better. And
I think we've seen that most of the or the top successful people that are being brought to our view, they all, when you read their books or you learn about their processes, I think all of them make time for health and fitness, even if it's a small amount of time. It's scheduled in, it's blocked in, and we're talking the most successful people in the world.
Just look at them.
Right.
They're
not.
Look at successful people and see that they work out.
But with
and are still alive.
But with and you can say both. There are some very successful people
that are very overweight,
or unhealthy. But some of the if you're I notice both. But
I think that's a old school mentality versus new school mentality.
Totally.
People recognizing that fitness and health and nutrition and stuff like that will, no matter what, benefit everything.
Totally.
So I'm going to put it in there because it has such a good ROI.
Even if it's regimented into my day, it's going to be there.
Yeah. Awesome. So after that, now we go into cognitive restructuring and reframing. So taking the stressful situation and looking at it with a growth mindset. How is this challenge is put in front of me that I usually would stress out about? How is this going to make me better?
Yep.
Awesome. After that, then we go into the traditional relaxation stuff. This is mindfulness. This is diaphragmatic breathing, which is important to say diaphragmatic and not just breathing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will push stuff into their lungs, which can trigger the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic. So breathing into your gut.
Exactly.
And then after that, we got some supplementation. And I think that's important to remember that's on the top. That's the last things. That's the less than 1% that you're kind of tugging at trying to get better. So.
One quick thing we talk about traditional relaxed breathing. We talked before in our meeting before pursed lips when we're breathing out. Can we go into that a little bit?
So the difference between regular
breathing,
and
just
pursed.
breathing through your nose versus breathing out with pursed lips.
So performing pursed lips breathing is actually going to be more effective in terms of activating that parasympathetic response, so getting us to relax a little bit more because we're able to control our breath, especially if we're experiencing heaven forbid we're, experiencing a panic attack. But pursed lips breathing is going to help us through that compared to if you're just trying to breathe in and out of your nose. You're not going to be able to get any control at all. Again, you're able to push out more air out of your mouth, and pursed lips breathing actually has more of an effect on that vagus nerve that runs right down through your chest, near your heart, into your gut, next to your stomach. So we're going to have a greater response with diaphragmatic breathing compared to just breathing in and out of your nose.
So breathe in through your nose and out through the mouth.
Yeah.
Through a pursed.
So pursed lips breathing is you breathe in through your nose, and then you're going to breathe out through pursed lips. Pursed lips, you want to imagine like you're trying to not necessarily whistle, but it's kind of like the in between whistling and blowing out a birthday candle, kind of like that. So you're going to, kind of
tighten your lips up a little bit and just breathe out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is that where the paper bag breathing thing came in?
Sort of. That will also help with, if you're having a panic attack, that'll help you control your breath.
That's still a thing, right?
Oh, yeah, that is still a thing. But if you can do it on your own, if you are someone that does experience panic attacks on the regular, and that you experience them on a regular basis, and if you're okay with pursed lips breathing, then that can take the place of of breathing with that paper bag.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Cristina.
Oh, of course.
Appreciate it. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to learn more about this stuff, do you have any resources that they could look towards?
Oh.
Stuff that you found is really beneficial?
I'm more than willing to be a resource for anybody out there. So if you want my information, I'm more than happy to provide it. But as far as a paper resource or an online resource, I haven't really found one. These are things that I've kind of all picked up along the way in my teaching and, in my career so far, I guess.
Dang, so people gotta go to school, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
In my class at San Jose State University.
Yeah. If people do want to get a hold of you, where can they find you on Instagram?
Oh, on Instagram, my Instagram handle is my last name, so it's Carrillo, CarrillocC17 on Instagram.
Cool, awesome. Heck yeah. And if you guys want to get a hold of us or ask us any questions, you guys can reach out to at the Coast Range Podcast. Let us know what you guys thought about this episode or anything else. If you gues have any questions about any of the stuff that we covered, you guys can reach out to us at the Coast Range Podcast, or you can find me at WestPyatt2013 on Instagram. Natalie?
At NatLovesYou22.
And Brett?
At nutrition_by_Brett.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it.